But time ran out. After Israel launched several attacks on Iran's nuclear facilities, Trump unleashed bunker busters on 3 key enrichment sites.
Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
The facilities were seriously damaged, but not obliterated. Chatham House's Sanam Vakil says Khamenei underestimated what Israel and the U.S. would do.
I think that Khamenei always assumed that he could play for time. And what he really didn't understand is that the world around Iran had very much changed and had tired of Khamenei and Iranian foot dragging and antics. And so that was a miscalculation.
By the time Khamenei died, Israel had decimated 2 key proxies, Hamas and Hezbollah, wiped out Iran's air defenses, and with U.S. help, left Iran's nuclear program in shambles. What remains is a robust ballistic missile program, the brainchild of Khamenei. It's unclear who will replace him to lead a weakened, vulnerable Iran. Jackie Northam, NPR News.
So what comes next for Iran? The Trump administration's stated goal is regime change, and some members of Congress still want any next step to come with their authorization, which was not obtained before this morning's strikes. House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries of New York is among those still pushing to vote on a war powers resolution in the coming days. He joins us now. Leader Jeffries, welcome back to All Things Considered.
Thank you for having me on.
First, what is your reaction to reports of Ayatollah Khamenei's death, and what does it mean for security in the region?
Well, I'm not going to shed any tears as it relates to his death. He's really his own people, and built in Iran is the largest state sponsor of terror in the world. But what comes next is unclear because the Trump administration has not been able to articulate a plan, one, to ensure that U.S. forces are not entangled in a forever war in the Middle East, which we know would be a disaster. And this notion of regime change has never been successful, as most recently indicated by its failure in Iraq, its failure in Libya, and its failure in Afghanistan.
What would a war powers resolution do if passed? You've been talking about this for a while now. Just help us understand how it could change the situation on the ground at this point.
Well, the resolution would require that Donald Trump immediately terminate the use of any U.S. armed forces from any hostilities against Iran or any part of its government or military unless that is explicitly authorized by a declaration of war.
Oh, blah, 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 blah. Now, you really don't understand anything in geopolitics unless you have some kind of, perspective, historical perspective, right? So first off, while Europeans run around in, fig leaves, Iran, that was Persian Empire, was, inventing modern math. And they aren't. See, you have to realize that they've always been a player. War II, that photograph of Winston Churchill, FDR, and Joe Stalin was taken in Tehran, in Iran, in Tehran. Why was that? Because it was a play. And so, at the end of World War II, all of the European imperial forces kind of had to say, we've been bad, we've, slavery and stolen all of your resources and basically, treated you just like the Nazis treated all the people in the death camps. We're not even going to say we're sorry, but, hey, it's a new world, so let's forget about it and move forward, right? Right, so that's where we're at. Now, if you don't realize that, then what happened is that all through Africa and the Mideast and the Third World, Asia, basically, it stayed the same. It's just that, we're giving you freedom, yeah. And, like the Mideast, all of those countries never existed. They were drawn out on a napkin by English and French um, diplomats. So that's what we have today. So Iran is a country that's bigger than Western Europe, than the EU. It's bigger than the EU, has 90 million people in it, and it's one gigantic forest mountain range with a bunch of cities in it. A lot of resources, a lot of oil, a lot of natural gas, and Israel gets most of its natural gas from there in Syria, right? So you don't realize that the Zionist country of Israel is not the Jews, sorry. It is the continuation of the European imperial force, right? And America is just a chump player, right? And we've always been just the muscle, right? And so now the world is going to change. We've had 70 years of the rules-based order, and the United States has been the sheriff of the planet, and the Europeans have the cockroaches. The reptiles have basically been running the thing. Hail Hydra! Go watch Stan Lee's Captain American movies, and X-Men, right? And A Fabulous Four. All of those movies tell you kind of what's going on, meaning our technology is way ahead of wherever you think it might be. Certain groups have been screwing with the human species in every way imaginable, energetically, genetically. We don't even know where we are. I mean, if you go to your average Walmarts and just, get in one of those electric shopping carts and just kind of go slow and, get to where people check out. The big, it's like, in slaughterhouses, the cows come off the thing and they go into a little paddock, and then one by one they are and that's kind of Walmart's, right? So just look at the people there, especially if they have a Walmart's pharmacy. Everyone is totally whacked on drugs, right? And once you get on the drugs, if you get off the drugs, So the bottom line is the last 10 shows I've done, it's about all of this stuff is an illusion. So we're going to be in war in Iran for a long, long time, right? To the point where it's like, first of all, within 15 minutes of America and Israel bombing, Iran and the Houthis responded and, hit 7 of the Arabian allies where we have bases, hit American bases, and hit Israel. And basically, the Houthis have been shooting at the U.S. Navy for the last, 4 or 5 years, and we haven't been able to stop them. We had to leave, right? So basically, especially they're going to close down. They already have closed down the Hormuz, right, where 20% of all the oil in the world goes through. So now it doesn't go through that. That means, last week oil was selling at about 59 to $60 a barrel, right? And as we got close to Friday, it went up to 67, right? Now, when the market opens on Monday, well, it's going to open up tomorrow in, Asia, and I bet you it's $100, right? And when American markets open, I bet you it's $150 a barrel. So the oil company's going to love that. That means they're going to make some bucks. So they're all in, right? They're all for it, right? So the Houthis shoot missiles at, and the Iranians shoot missiles at America and Israel that cost, on the average, between $5,000 and $50,000, right? Whereas the United States and Israel has to try and shoot those things down, and those missiles cost somewhere between $2 and $10 million. So the U.S. Navy is shooting, the Arleigh Burke class destroyers. They got a box on the back with about 100 missiles, and not all of them are anti-aircraft, right? Anti-missile missiles. About 20-30% of them are like cruise missiles that are offensive, right? So they got maybe each of those destroyers has maybe 70 or 80 of these missiles. Well, that boat has to go back to its port to get refitted. You can't just, it's not like, they go get a box of bullets and stick it in, no. And, the Jerry Ford, their toilets aren't working. The 4,000 guys and girls on that boat, they're waiting like 70 minutes to take a dump. This is not good. This does not. So I love my Donnie Chump because Donnie has put 30% of our total naval resources in harm's way. In a bathtub that they can't get out of. All those ships they're called blue ocean ships, meaning they're meant to be out there in the middle of nowhere, where they got the whole ocean to run around on. Right. So the Iranians had these little, small submarines that are very, very quiet, right? And they have 5 or 6 torpedoes that they can launch, and they move very fast, and they have AI in them. And so once that little mini sub shoots off the 4 things, those suckers are out there looking for an aircraft carrier and they go slow, slow, slow. This is a torpedo, slow, 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 listening. And they got all of the sounds of those aircraft carriers, what they sound like underwater. And as soon as they kind of pick up the clinking of this, that, and the other thing, they kind of go towards it, still slow, 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 not making any noise themselves. And once they kind of really, all right, yep, that's the Jerry Ford there. And then they hit it with, acoustic radar, sonar. And bingo, oh, yep, that's it. And then they can go like 70 knots, like 200 miles an hour. By that time, they're real close to the ship. And there's not much that that aircraft carrier can do. It can't turn out of the way because this thing can, whichever way the aircraft carrier goes, it can go. So that's just one of the 60 or so technologies that Iran and the Houthis have to shoot. It's like shooting ducks in a barrel, right? And so, and what you just was listening to me playing was, NPR, which is supposed to be, commie liberal radio. No, they are, 100%, corporate. They're doing what the New York Times says, what the Wall Street Journal says, what NBC, CNN, Fox say, right? They're all the same thing. And poor America, you poor, poor people up there, between being, on OxyContin for, toothache for the last, 6 years. So the only real way to you got to realize that all this is an illusion. This is the Matrix. This ain't reality. This is a, game show, right? But a lot of people are dying and suffering. And the United States is going to have an economic collapse because it's planetary. The '08 collapse was just a figure of speech, getting us ready for this thing, because what's going to happen is China is already is a dead man walking. Between its population, within 5 years, 80% of their population is going to be over 60 years old. There's only like 10% of young people. They don't have kids. They're sitting in mom and dad's basement playing. They went to college or no jobs. It's like, uh-oh. So, and any of those guys who had anything on the ball, they already left China. So, anyway, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensie Owl Bob. Yeah, there's one that I guess AI dropped back in. Hey, come on, hit that like button. Come on, let's get our algorithm going. Come on, let's get the mojo and make some comments. What do you think? Have any of you guys been watching Cliff High? Do you know who he is? Right? Have any of you been watching Joseph P. Farrell, Dark Journalism, Middle Nation? Go watch that guy. Woo wee! He's baby. And who else? Chris Hedges, the two Chinese guys. Very, very good. So it's not like you can't see what's going on. It's right in front of our face, right? But nobody wants to really step into it. Nobody wants to be responsible. Nobody wants to have a life. I mean, I spent my life building community. Now I'm living in, a part of Tennessee where everyone is brain dead. They're spending all their time, the kids, basketball games and the church's Wednesday night potluck dinner and, we have Bible studies. It's only about what we say the Bible's about. They really don't study it, right? All they do is speak their point of, what their liturgy is, what their, because, look at the Southern Baptist organization. They have 60,000 different sects. What's a sect? It's not sex, no, sex. It is basically different religions. The Southern Baptists have 60,000 different religious, theologic points of view, right? Our church is the blood of the sacred, holy, moly smegma of the sacred lamb. What? And you gotta get a haircut a certain way. And you got to be baptized, you got to wear the sacred snorkel, So anyway, where are you guys? What is going on in your mind? Because nuclear war could be like this, right? And it wouldn't be end of time, so it would just put us back in the Dark Ages, because that's what happened in the Dark Ages. 250 years after death of Christ, and we have the Vatican and the Holy Roman Empire, and then it kind of splits up into the Spanish version of the Holy Roman Empire and the French version, and then the Eastern, they go up to Turkey, and then they get all the Greek Orthodox and the Russian Orthodox, and they start having wars, right? And they basically kill a lot of people. They don't grow any food because they, when they had the Europeans went into the Middle East, and stole their stuff. But when you travel like that and your hygiene isn't the best, you start to have diseases, and then those diseases kind of mutate, and bingo, bango, you have some, black plagues, the Greeks and the Romans and the Mesopotamians, they had science, and the Persians and the Babylonians, they had science and medicine down. But then it got forgotten. I mean, the Romans had the best toilets they ever had, great running water. And they didn't. And so the water became totally polluted. Right now, that's what's happening to us, They had their own version of PFAS, of toxins that came from their culture. I mean, everyone's drinking out of lead cups, good idea. That's how you get some really stupid people. So what are you going to do about it? Let's have a conversation here. Come on, Why don't you talk to me, Imano? That's the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. Dude Awake 42 at Gmail, right? Come on. Let's have some thumbs up. There's two of you there. Let's jangle the chain of the algorithm, right? Now they let me do this, because this is, within Moloch's motif. They always like to have the old guy, right, with a beard, right, and he is not quite the loyal opposition, but he puts out the energetic of understanding. And to run an empire and even an oligarchy, you have to have that energetic, right? So that's what I'm the pebble in the World Wide Web, right? But all our basic foundations of our industry, our technology, they're 300 years behind where where it really is. All the little flying saucers people see, they're ours, right? During World War II, the Germans had these things called Foo Fighters, right? Little stainless steel balls that would fly around, as the B-17s were crossing the Atlantic from England. These things would kind of bing, 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 be around them and fly with them, and basically start to electronically EMF disrupt the spark of the internal combustion engine of those things. So the engines would, and the airplanes would have to we got to go back. And they would, 20% of the bombers of each attack would have to go back to base. And another 10% would fall out of the sky. And that's before the Germans started shooting on them. So anybody who goes to war is nuts. I mean, there's no reason for you, a young person, do not go to war, right? Say, hey, it's against my religion. I don't want to kill anyone. I won't shoot anybody except a higher officer. A general comes by me, I'll take my gun and shoot him, right? My general, not the other guy's general, my general, right? I mean, you might end up in Leavenworth for saying that, but, the bottom line is you are the decider. The thing is not to be violent. The guy who wrote The Art of War, he said, war is ridiculous. There is no real good reason to go to war. Do not go to war. But if you do, this is what you should do. That was the book Art of War, right? But he went on and on and on. And Buddha said the same thing. So did Jesus. Hey, just mellow out. Talk to God. God, I don't understand. I'm having a hard time here. Please take the wheel of my life and, drive it. I am just your doula. I am your, and that's doula is Greek for slave. It's a midwife, right? Not the midwife per se. The doula is the person who does all the work. The midwife just is there to catch the baby, right? The doula does everything else, brings the life through, right? So come on, let's see, thumbs up. Let's go to it, right? So I've been talking for about 20 minutes now, and I'm going to go. If no one wants to have a conversation, I'm out of here, right? Okay.